us interfacing into something that's just centrically branded almost directly to Minds, right? And it's going to,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a huge exposure push for everyone, and I think it's going to be a big tool to tie web resources and start to show web resources being legitimized to the Minds platform. And I know I've talked to Bill and to John, and I know they're excited about it. They're just like really preoccupied with getting this upgrade up and going. So,
That's just it.
were you able
But
to
yeah, the
order
problem I've got with my Android phone is my store, my capacity to store things, or I'd be limited, as you say, for us to share certain things with each other. So yeah, there's no doubt about it. I've got to have the laptop. I'm really looking forward to it. So I've, I'm always having to go through and clear storage on my phone so I can look at other things non-stop because it just hasn't got the capacity to do certain things.
Yeah,
It's very limited. So
yeah, and it'll change everything. Your ability to go in between yours and other groups, and then interface more. Like a lot of building the organic reach comes from um, placing things on multiple groups and tying, bringing the resources together and that type of thing. And like I have no idea how you even do that on the phone. Like just to get from my own page is like posting and everything is complicated, and I have no idea what the upload times are like, but I think you'll be really happy. I don't know how your Wi-Fi is at home. If
it's
it's
quite good actually. I've got quite a good Wi-Fi,
nice.
so it's not
So
too bad. I don't really have too many problems with it.
I think it's going to be a huge benefit. It's going to be a massive benefit for us to do the radio program and to definitely set up where what I'm going to do is try and set up where when we do the Imaginarium, I've got some sort of a cool backdrop kind of thing, and make sure that my hair is washed and I'm not sitting in my underwear like I am now.
Yeah,
And
and I've got to make sure I look all good. Yeah, if I'm going to be doing any podcasts or anything, I've got to make sure this is the beauty of this. I can just think, right, I don't have to have any makeup on or look amazing or anything because you can just hear my voice and that's it. But
yeah,
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 yeah, we'll
and
have
that's
to be more organized.
I think it's going to be a really important builder for the next 6 months to build confidence, to know what we look like on camera, to know how we're sitting, how to face the camera, where our good side is, how much, what light, all that blah 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 stuff. And I'm gonna have a really great first connection with this television producer tonight. I don't know if you read that in the notes, but she sounds like she just joined Minds and she's sort of eyeballed some of the, just some of my content from my timeline, but to start to get a feeling for where we're going. So she's going to help me to understand um, procurement as far as what lenses, what cameras, what audio recording, what things need to be considered to sync audio video, location scouting, lighting, where how to set things, because most productions use more than one camera, so we're going to be kind of doing this run and gun thing as they call it. And I I think we all kind of have to kind of come to terms with understanding how it works. So what I had sort of thought, and I don't know if you can hear me, Dan.
Yeah, I got.
Okay. What I'd sort of thought was I'd get the recording camera, and then I'd also get a dash camera, which is like a 170-degree wide angle camera. So when we're traveling, we're just recording. We're making tape, making tape, making tape, making tape. So the discussions optimize the time that we're there, and in transport, and just be able to use the clips, because um, I really think that it probably will be a production sort of not of us just sort of sitting talking for an hour where we pick the best material and format it that way, but the ultimate highlight in this sort of expanded vision of what it's going to be will be sort of if we could do flows kind of like, you know, kind of like Pink Floyd The Wall, where we have a whole segment where we talk about what we saw that day, and then maybe some of the audio kicks in, and let Daniel work his magic to have just audio of us talking in the background and visuals, and then interlude that sort of into the next day kind of thing. And I just thought that that would be a really standout, unique way to, you know, use the conversations after hours. And I know Daniel had talked about doing the main production and then a secondary production as well, so it would just like give all the maximization for footage. So why don't we start the meeting by talking about where you guys feel we are. This is where I am. I'll go first. I pretty much understand the legal filing at this point. I pretty much understand the costs involved with that. I'm still, for my piece of the puzzle, to formulate the budget and to be able to put together the total budget scenario for the production. We just got to sort of nail down, Nikki, your final costs with the things that we talked about in our private meeting on Wednesday, and then something that I brought up with Daniel about making sure we have what we need to go into post-production safely. Like, it's going to be a mass storage drive, like a 12, I figure a minimum of a 12 terabytes dual RAID storage drive where he can do video edits. And then we just got to figure out whether or not he needs any more hardware to safely perform it. And I've been hearing a lot about where the editing computer generally isn't tied to the internet, because that way there's no risk of it, having to do anything more than what it's going to do. There's, the internet computer is always with viruses and stuff like that is sort of the risk point of the situation. So that's the last piece that I got to figure out to compartmentalize the budget, and then I can come to terms with getting the filing installed. And then the next piece, Dan, is website, and Nikki is crowdfunding. So I'll let one of you two go ahead and jump in.
Just to let you know, excuse me, I've got a bit of a tickly throat, so I keep coughing, but I've just been making lists actually of contacts that, people that I've networked with. I've made sort of two lists of a list of sort of general people to, eventually when we've got the website and everything up and running, I can, and I've got my laptop and everything, and I can send out, aside from other discussions, I can send out a generic email about donating the crowdfund, but also people that perhaps could be, that we could also pass the baton to, not completely, I don't mean completely pass the baton to in terms of they do all the crowdfunding, but as well as, so like I've been invited on to Tim, We Advance Life as People. I think we've arranged, it's on Wednesday the 5th of April. And I'm thinking I'll probably have a chat with Tim in advance before, but I can bring some stuff in about the Infinite Imaginarium. But I was kind of thinking him, him being one of the people that perhaps could be someone that could help with the promotional elements of the Infinite Imaginarium. So what I'm saying is there could be some sort of major players of crowd who would support, the Infinite Imaginarium, as well as just general people that you know we can get on board with the donations. And also I'm working on the you know, that we talked about, Kevin, the elevator pitch, which I'm going to go back and read the mission statement that I wrote, and I might even not change it in any way, but I might tweak it and make it more sort of in keeping with what I'm going to write for the elevator pitch. So when I actually have discussions with people, I can bring that in. And like, for example, if I go on things like Life is People, I can bring those sorts of things into the discussion naturally. So I would bring the, you know, what we would term as the elevator pitch, I would bring that into a discussion naturally. And that's kind of how I would be able to get people involved with the project in that sense. So that's kind of where I'm at as well. And obviously I've got to get my flights sorted out and the laptop, and obviously I'll work out the expenses, and I'll let you guys know before I purchase the laptop, because I was going to send you what I've sort of discovered, what I've looked into. I'll send you the full kind of specification just to make sure that it is going to be the right thing to purchase. So that's kind of where I'm at with it all.
I think Tim's a great resource because he, you know, he crowdsources the N99 platform, and he takes Bitcoin donations, and it would be good to get a word of mouth, you know, from the horse's mouth, what successes and failures he's had, to sort of help us establish some guidelines for us to know where to reach out, what works, what is a waste of time. You know what I mean? Because
that's what I thought. He'd be a great person to chat to in that respect, because he's kind of he's already been through some of those things, I'm guessing. There's another contact I've made through Facebook. They do like a radio show. I think it's called, is it called Core? I've never come across it before, but it's quite established, and he invited me on as a guest this Thursday. Hopefully
I saw that.
we can sync up. And I posted a link, the same link that he sent me when we were chatting on Facebook, on Asana. So I don't know if you guys have seen that yet, or if I've posted it in the right section.
Yes, I
just
saw
so you
it.
can have a look at it. But I had a long chat with him, and he's very much, he's liked the Infinite Imaginarium page. He actually messaged me and was really interested in what it was all about, and we had a discussion. And so he said, oh, would you like to come on as a guest on the show? Sent me the link, and it looked really relevant to everything that we're doing. And again, they're very established, so like Tim, they may be able to help us, you know, overcome some of the pitfalls, or sort of give us a bit of a heads up on what to do and what not to do, you know, to be sort of simplistic about it. But aside from that, I think they could be, you know, they would potentially support our project anyway, because it's something that they resonate with.
Great.
And they would donate. But they could potentially be somebody more like Tim, in the sense that, you know, that's all I meant when I said about passing the baton. I don't mean literally delegate everything to them, but you've obviously got people that you can send, you can try and get people to donate on a generic level. And obviously there's people that could have more of an involvement, sort of an assistant role involvement with the whole crowdfunding thing anyway, because it's something that they resonate with, and obviously it's in keeping with what they do as well, obviously. And we're building this whole network, you know, everything is collaborative, isn't it? So
yes,
that's where I'm at with everything. So
I'm really interested in resolving these things by the 15th of next month, and I figure we need a hard deadline to work towards, because the 15th of next month gives us exactly 6 months to get the crowdfunding done. Like that gives us 1/2 of a year before that's 2 days, 6 months and 2 days before the event starts, when we have to be there. So it's really good that you're doing this work, and Daniel, I'm curious how the letter that you got from Lumio and your thoughts about the March 25th meeting in San Francisco with them, and what opportunity you saw there.
Oh yeah. So actually, I just emailed them, and it's about helping co-host or organize the workshop here in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And that's going to be in May.
In May. Okay.
Yeah. And so I basically gave them a rundown of what we're trying to do, and basically telling them that we're kind of want to use them as inspiration and model for our own venture. And for my own research and my own digging around doing different things with like Scenario and DiviDAO, so I'm familiar with their structure and their organization for my various different things I've done. But anyway, so I reached out to them and I told them basically what I was thinking, and at the very least I could help volunteer to get the word out, or for it, or whatever. My mom, she has a lot of connections, as she's a principal at a private school, but she has to do a lot of fundraising, and she has a lot of like donors, and she does a lot of like fundraising, and she knows these people that do different things. So I reached out to them and said I might have a place for us to have the conference at, if they already don't have a person here in LA, because LA is big and they might have more connections here than like me. They don't even really know me. Yeah. But I kind of said that, and so I mean, at the very least, I think it will be good experience and be interesting for me to help them, like get the word out. And then also too, I mentioned that we had Infinite Imaginarium web show, and that the entity of Infinite Imaginarium, has been a part of webinars of conveners and Science and Non-Duality. So like I was kind of priming that we have them on the show, or we have a video conference with them prior to the workshop. So we kind of like just put it in their head, like, oh, this is what we're thinking for Infinite Imaginarium. And any advice, because they've been doing 5 years of working collaboratively in a non-hierarchical way. All their stuff is open source, as far as even their governance, their tools. So I think they are, at the very least, a good model to use and modify for our own benefit. And I kind of was mentioning this, I mentioned to both of you separately, but together, on how they structure things and how they go about things, is pretty interesting. And it's in line with already things that we have already thought about. Like, for instance, from what I understand of co-budget, which I would like to have a deeper conversation with them, is in line with Lee Travis's lobby voice. So, and it's a tool. I signed up for it, and I have it, and I'm playing with it a little bit. And it sounds similar to something that I did with DiviDAO, and we set up a test run of Ether to play with how we budget things, like, okay, we have this, how we allocate funds to different projects, because DiviDAO is all about, we have different projects, and then we're using decentralized tools to execute those projects, and people sign up for it. And so when we were doing that, it was very similar to what Lee Travis said about Lobby Voice. And then when I researched Lumio and Inspiro, and then I heard they use Co-Budget, which is a software where it's about allocating funds. So this is what I want to have more talks with them about, and we get into details about. But I think it's a beneficial tool for us. For me, it's all about, and I think for all of us too, being transparent, open source, collaborative. Basically, my as I'm distilling our vision and our kind of motto is that we are, like, just as we said in our first shows that we did of Infinite Imaginarium, we are writing the new story for humanity. And I would go as so far as that we already are trying to live in that new story of humanity. And that new story of humanity is about being an open source, collaborative, non-hierarchical way of working, kind of what Tim does, what in his own philosophy of kind of like the swarm, and this is what MadeSafe is about. So, especially when I had talks with Douglas Rushkoff, he said about the onboarding process. So the more that we get there into that new mindset and working with tools that are simple enough for us to use, that work for us, like say if CoBudget works out, because I envision that we use CoBudget exactly how Lee Travis talks about Lobby Voice, and that's how we go about funding projects in the future. And that's like far in the future, but for right now, we play with it, because you could even set it up to where you allocate fake money into your project, and we do mock things of budgeting our stuff. Like, oh, I want to do a campaign for SANS to raise awareness of the conference. It's going to be a 3-week campaign just before the project, and I want to do memes, 3 2-minute videos, and I want to hit this platform, that platform, and that platform. And so as I say right there, then I think about, okay, I need 3 people to manage Facebook, Minds, and Snapchat or whatever. And this is how we're going to do it. This is how funds get allocated. This is the roles that I see. Like, for instance, I already have documents of how I personally think roles are for the essentials of putting on the Minds Panel show, which is basically the Infinite Imaginarium, which if I could get it, I'll probably get it right now. But for instance, you have a host, you have someone that's a producer, you have guests, you have someone that's in PR, which basically just promotes the show on Minds or Facebook or YouTube or whatever it is, whatever that person in the quote unquote PR role does. For instance, I would do all the roles, but it's good to have those roles set. So it's like, okay, here's a template for anybody to come in and to do a show. And then I was talking to Nikki a lot about this before this thing, that we should all have a YouTube account, and I'll give access to, this is something we did in Scenario. There was 2 parts of Scenario. There was like the official Scenario company, but there was a Scenario community. And the Scenario community, for instance, that's the guy that would do the media for that was the one I created a relationship with. That's why I did a lot of stuff with them. And what they had was the community YouTube channel, and everybody kind of had access to that. So you could do fireside chats, you could do an interview with somebody, and it was easy enough for multiple people to do their own thing. And they had a central access point of doing it on the community channel. And this is kind of like independent from the actual official Scenario. So what I think, there's a lot of moving parts to this, but to keep it really simple is that important to leading up to it, we're already doing what we do. We get better at doing it, but I recently just read an article too where it talks about now the days of you doing a documentary and making the final project and going to a film festival and getting, let's say, money to distribute that film are very hard and to make it profitable. But what even major companies need to do is that it's more about the process of the film than it is actually the finished product. Meaning it's what they post on their Facebook. It's these short little videos on YouTube. It's these discussions that we're having about our vision for the film. The creators talking about what they were thinking about the storyboards or the interview or whatever it is, right? Like all of that is part of the experience. Muted myself. It's part of the experience of the thing, and this is how. I mean, Scenario used to use the community channel to help get people, different groups, working kind of collaboratively with the entity itself. So it was kind of like this onboarding, kind of weeding out process. Like people come onto the community channel, and you give them the little spiel of what Scenario was, and then they talk to some of the community members and what community members like about it, and then you ask them, "Oh, what is your organization? What do you guys do?" And I said, "Oh, Scenario would be good for that," or "Oh, we have this person that's doing that. It's like maybe we could work together, or the platform will be able to do that." So this, in the same way, what I was telling Nikki is that we should always be building the Infinite Imaginarium crew. And like I was telling her that we should get people back on board onto the Infinite Imaginarium thing. And so it's in a lot of ways, it's like how I envision the Minds panel show is that anybody can come on and do a show. Like, for instance, Nikki was talking about Demon Saw and Tech Lords because she had a talk with Tech Lords. Well, Gus Spiders wanted to learn more about Demon Saw, and he reached out to the founder. And so he used the umbrella of the Minds panel show to have a discussion with him, and they created a relationship. He learned more about the project. They told him about Minds, and it's kind of like this win-win situation, right? And then they did like 3 other interviews, and now Tech Lords has a good relationship with the founder, yada, 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 right? Same thing I did with Infinite Imaginarium. I had Greg Meredith on the Infinite Imaginarium show. I kind of told him what Infinite Imaginarium was about. He told us what about Scenario was about. And I did a little bit of media work for them and memes and little video clips or whatever. Same thing with DiviDAO. Actually, I went on to the DiviDAO show or like their meetup. But it was funny because the first time I was on Tim, the DiviDAO came on too, and we talked about that. So that was interesting how that worked out. But this is, how our meetings are also documented. Like the process of it is part of the experience of what is happening. So, we're giving this experience of collaboration, but at the same time, we need to like hone in on our stuff. Like I said, all 3 of us should be able to do a show by ourselves. Should be able to have access to everything. And I was talking to Nikki that I'll put that in the Git book, like I did with the Minds panel show. And if anybody needs help, I'll help them, of course. But we should all at least have the basic knowledge of that. So, for instance, if Nikki contacts somebody one day and they're interested in the Infinite Imaginarium and they have an organization and me and you are not available, that she could get them into the Infinite Imaginarium. sit down,
I
talk
could
to them.
create a show just for those
Create a
people. You know, you
show.
might just be away somewhere,
Yeah,
or
you
whatever.
can do that within. It's so easy that literally it could be done within a couple of hours. I've done this on the Minds Panel show, and even with the Infinite Imaginarium.
The other
Where
thing
you
that I was
get-
going to say
you
as
get-
well
yeah.
about community chat from the past, from what I remember, one of the good things about it was it very quickly highlighted who was interested, who was on board. It kind of narrowed everything down really quickly, so you kind of got a sense, well, not even a sense, you would pretty much know quite quickly who was going to be involved in a future show, based on the fact you were having that discussion in the community chat, because people will sometimes come across as being interested, and until you actually speak to them, or they come into that community chat, which is great. It's a very what's the word, soft, easy way of finding out who's really interested and who's really going to, you know, come onto a show. You know, take it right through to the show, rather than just posing an interest or having a comment or an interest, rather than sort of having to ask people pointed questions, or even not deliberately want to make people feel pressured, but by default, by going to them and saying, right, are you going to do such and such, it makes them feel pressured, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I can make that time, or they suddenly get fearful and think, oh god, but I've got to speak on it. Kind of naturally evolves into who's going to be interested or who's going to be on the show. Does that make sense? You know, like with the community chat, I found it to be quite a good way of you know, finding that out.
Something that we did interesting with DiviDAO is they on Zoom. And you can do this on Aperion, and even with Jitsi, is you establish a room and you have that same address, and it's kind of like you can make it close or you can make it open or whatever you want to do with it, but it's a virtual space that's always there for anybody to use. So like in DiviDAO, he called it the lobby, DiviDAO lobby, and so it's like basically a kind of open room that's always available for anybody. Like say you're in a chat or in the comments and you're saying, oh, this is really good artwork, I like this, and then you, like for instance, Kevin was saying he was talking to that TV producer, and you have a conversation, right? You're having a conversation in your chat, in the chat box, and he said, oh, we should do this or that. Oh, let's get together. Do you have time right now? Let's get together into the Infinite Imaginarium lobby. And you go in there and you have a voice-to-voice conversation, and then you're like, okay. But I mean, part of the thing too is what we always did, or what they always did, and that's why it's good to have like a separate channel just for the community, is that those could be just raw footage, and I think it's important to have it, let's say, open source in that sense. So if I'm not available, or you're not available, or it's super late for Nikki, that it's there, and it's up to each of us to how much we want to be involved with everything. Is that we could sit and listen to that meeting for an hour or whatever. And of course, each of us, whoever has that meeting, we should give the highlights to people, right? And oh, I had a meeting with Lumio, and we talked about on April the 15th at 1 o'clock in LA, we're going to have a workshop, and I'm organizing Misty Nomer and Dee to help represent the Infinite Imaginarium. And if you guys have any questions on Lumio or even the structure of the Infinite 3 Foundation, give it to me so I could ask them. Hopefully we'll be able to record it, and we're going to do this and that for that. If you want to be a part of it, if you don't want to be a part of it. But this is what we did. But there should be also the whole exact raw audio of that meeting, what it's an hour or whatever. So like if you're really interested in Lumio, then you can go and listen to it. And it could be even like for people in the future, like if they really want to like develop or get into the nuts and bolts, you know, like people you know, that are really into something, then they go into like, you know, like if you're really into a band and you listen to their bootleg tapes. You listen to their live footage or them discussing stuff like Pink Floyd talking about the making of the Wall or Live at Pompeii or whatever. You know what I mean? So like, there's a whole archive of footage that's available that we're documenting in the process, and I think that at one point helps the onboarding for people, because I think what's important is that we convert people to be in the Imaginarium and whatever the Imaginarium means to them. And in the beginning, I think, we have to define it. We define roles, but hopefully they get to the point where they're creating roles for themselves. They're creating entities for themselves of however they see the new story for humanity. And this is what I was telling Nikki, is that as we get more experience, as we go, I think, part of the most important part, and I know we need funding for the actual project of SANS, but we should always be crowdsourcing resources, and I mean like resources like information, resources as far as connections, resources as whatever it is, moral support, emotional support, whatever it is, and you don't, so like Nikki was saying about, I think later, I hope, at least this is what I will campaign and push to, is that the foundation, the nonprofit foundation, becomes, maybe we don't use the same phrase, but in essence, lobby voice. So whoever wants to fund a project within the framework of the New Story for Humanity has a structure, a network to be able to do that. And hopefully we have good enough documentation and we mentor people so they know how to use it. And, you can only go so far with like telling people how to use it. And even with us, like we get advice, but we're not going to really learn it until we actually do it. And then, we could hopefully try to fall away from the pitfalls, but that's why we develop a relationship with Lumio. Because if they like what we're doing and we like what they're doing, I'm sure, I could write an email to them, hey, we're having this problem, or we're thinking of this, do you think that's a good thing? They have a lot of documentation on the blog, but, and even with the internet, it's easy to get into a room and just chat with somebody. So this should always be like our practice. I've seen it work well in Scenario and DiviDAO. And, we keep on curtailing it to our own preferences, to our own style. But, yeah. And so also too, I wanted to mention that I was researching and looking into, because Daniel Pinchbeck wrote a new book, and it's called How Soon Is Now, and it's kind of about solutions for the ecological crisis. And so it's so funny, I like that statement. When the student is ready, the master will appear. And I felt that a lot this weekend, even though I was like kind of cut off from certain things. But I really was priming myself to research certain things. And I told Nikki, the minute, when you, Kevin, were saying, oh, you should reach out to Inspiro, the next day, I was checking my emails and I got an email from Lumio that they wanted to do a U.S. tour. And they were looking for volunteers and people to help in different areas. And I'm like, oh, this is too like meant to be. At the very least, I'll attend, but hopefully I can get involved and help. And I think, they're from what I understand, that's their ethos, right? And then simultaneously, I knew about Daniel Pinchbeck's book, and I started digging into it more, reading more interviews, and I listened to his podcast. And he's creating, or wants to create, what is called the Woke Network. And he says he envisions something on par with CNN or MSNBC, but it's more solution orientated, more consciousness orientated, you know, like, and I feel the same way when I look at YouTube, right? YouTube, or even now mine's, what we see of YouTube is criticism of the situation, right? Or commentary of the situation, and nothing of vision of what can be or what should be or where we want to go via tied with solutions. And I think that's all of our kind of goal, right? We're kind of like,
it's like creating something new.
yeah,
It will make the the previous thing obsolete. So, you know, obviously this perpetuating cycle of channels just discussing the same problems over and over again in a different order, in a different, slightly different format, or, you know, with their own kind of personal embellishment on it, but it's still the same content. They're just discussing the same things. It just perpetuates the cycle, you know, of it continuing. So that, yeah, for me personally, like you're saying, that's kind of the thing that I want to move away from, because I believe that there's a time to show people what's happening or alert people to what's happening, and sometimes that part of the situation isn't that pleasant, because some people are very still kind of wallowing through the mire and the illusion, to the point that they don't want to have any awareness. They only want a certain level of awareness. They're not ready to hear those sorts of things. So I do believe there's a place for that, to sort of, you know, you have to enlighten people sometimes in a be cruel to be kind way, by sort of saying, look, this is what's happening, you know, you need to wake up and realize this shit's going on in the world or whatever. But then to just continue that over and over again isn't productive or positive in any way, shape or form. Then we have to start thinking about creating, which is what the Infinite Imaginarium is about, by collaborating with people, blending ideas, then you create something new, and then the old thing just falls away. It doesn't exist anymore.
yeah.
So,
I'd like to
yeah.
sort of steer us back to the meeting notes, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, Daniel, your input is excellent. And I think ongoing, that is the way to leave room in the web presence to build what the nonprofit is functioning for, what our mission statement is. And that's where, Nikki, the mission statement and the elevator pitch kind of differ, because the elevator pitch says intention and the mission statement says, this is our end around. So together, those two things sort of populate where we're going. So Daniel, if it seems to me ongoing that working into Lumio, co-budget, and the other facets of the organization, especially if you can build an interpersonal tie, bringing them in to Los Angeles, exposing them to your people, open the dialogue, show them our vision. If we have the web presence up and running, even if there's some loose ends, then that will be, you know, really critical to people getting to know who we are. Because fundamentally what we're doing here first is we're making this first documentary so that we can be bona fide, so that we become, to some extent, a presence, that which there's a point of reference over and above our voices on our global podcast. Okay, so it's going to be very tiered moving forward, and I definitely believe that when we're looking at the web design, Dan, that we want to tie that social responsibility as one of our main ethics, for sure, and how how we can communicate that to the people that we're trying to reach out to. I think our target donor, like, we're really ultimately not asking for very much in comparison to some things. It's more than like a small crowd fund, but it's also a much bigger project than when people sort of can see. That's the whole thing about the 2-minute interlude video that should be running sort of continuously in a corner bar, where we're showing ourselves standing where we live, saying what what the point of the SAND documentary is and what we're trying to do, and what the 3-part series of science, sound, and spirit are going to tie the 3 documentaries together to bring a whole package of what we feel our transitional capacities are going to bring. So if we can really stay nailed down on getting the website built, and I just need to know, Dan, what we need for hosting, if you've had any luck in building framework, either with Sofego and Corey's unlimited title suite for that that you had mentioned.
Yeah, I did so he was supposed to email me, and I kind of like gave him some time, but I reached out to him again to see what's going on, so we could use his what he has is this kind of the professional package of WordPress, which has like more integral frameworks or templates for us to use. And for instance, we did this when we did the Minds Panel website, and so I told him to at very least give me the kind of the resource so I could look through them and see which one I think works best for us. So then we could get that going. But it was interesting because me and Nikki kind of were talking on and off all day today, and she was talking about setting up things and making sure they're done right. And she said she talked to tech lords. I mean, in an ideal world for me,
I was just going to chime in and say tech lords, I could speak to him.
Would host the Infinite Imaginarium site. The web development team is kind of what we set up for the Minds Panel show, and we did it pretty easily. Me, Sofuego, and Gus Spiders are the development team for the website, and we just kind of upkeep the website. And it's with the attention to, with all 3 of us, I know because I have had many different conversations, and I was talking to Corey, he's learning more too, actual coding, so we could modify it to how we want it. This is just generally how we are as people, but anyways, that we, we need kind of like that web presence, right? We already have a web presence, which is on Minds and YouTube, but that kind of right there, and I want it later for as we grow to be a more functional website than just an advertisement for what we're doing. You know what I mean? So like, normal websites are kind of like, oh, this is for a podcast. Our shows are this day. Tune into this. Here are our sponsors. Sign up for our newsletter. So it's basically just a bundle up of advertisement for their product, which is the podcast. And we need that for right now, but eventually as we grow, and see, I don't know where it's going to meet because I know what Minds wants to do, and we have already experimented with it, and we even have the subdomain of Infinite Imaginarium. When Bill came to me and said, hey, would you mind testing the subdomains? I'll set it up for you guys. Do you want me to set it up as a Minds Panel show? And I'm like, no, set it up as Infinite Imaginarium. Because even way back then, I had visions of Infinite Imaginarium going beyond anything else I have done. So we have a subdomain on Minds called Infinite Imaginarium, and that I envision later being a fully functional, collaborative tool for everybody who's involved in Infinite Imaginarium to use, if you know
Okay.
what I'm saying. And that is like, yeah, we'll have a domain named Infinite Imaginarium, but actually the fully functioning collaborative tool, I would hope that Minds gets there soon, and maybe hopefully it's synchronistic, as in the same time as we grow, they grow, and it links up and it makes sense. And so that the subdomain of Infinite Imaginarium on Minds is our fully functioning collaborative tool of people that are members of Infinite Imaginarium. And that's where we go and we do our collaborations. And maybe we have a couple off-site tools. Maybe we could even, with Ghost Spiders, with Tech Lords, embed them into the actual subdomain. So we don't have to necessarily go off the subdomain to bring up co-budget. I know Ghost Spiders made a patch. So inside a blog, you could do a peer in. And Lee Travis was experimenting with this. It's called Lee Live. And that works. For instance, we build off of that. So in my head is, do I want like what? Because what I know later, which everything is moving towards, but I don't know how soon that would be. Why build that on our own domain if it's already building on Minds, and I feel comfortable with the vision of John and Bill, and there would be no Infinite Imaginarium without Minds. Minds is the
I agree. I have to say I agree with that.
incubator where we grew out of, and we're always going to. I think Minds is always going to be kind of like our home, or always going to be our parent, or always, you know what I mean? Is always something that we look to, even as we grow and we move out and do different things. That there's always going to be Minds there in some form or another. So,
in terms of what Kevin was saying, and sort of moving on in terms of the, because obviously with the crowdfunding and everything, if we could get something that is sort of active in the sense of the website, if that makes sense.
yeah.
I could have another meeting with Tech Lords and talk to him about that. Obviously I'll speak to you guys first, or I could perhaps arrange a meeting with all of us, which would be more logical, and maybe we could work through this. It's only a minor obstacle of getting something in place.
For instance, when we did the Minds panel website, it happened within a video conference. We got together, all of us, Tech Lords, me, Ghost Spiders, and Sofuego. And Tech Lords said we should have the Minds panel show website. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of down, but how we're going to host it, this and that. He said, don't worry, we could host, I'll host it. But I don't want to build the website. Can you guys do it? And we're like, yeah. And Sofuego said, I have my unlimited pro pass for WordPress. It's like, here's the resource page of, this is all I have access to. Which one do you like? I looked through that within 30 minutes. I picked one, said I like this one. So Fago set that up. And we did this with all in like hours, and then we had the website. You know what I mean? That's how quickly we could move. And I said, like, in an ideal world, that would be perfect. So, like, I didn't want to make a purchase via you, Kevin, and because, making a commitment for a year of the hosting. That's why I wanted to ask. So, Fago, what do you guys use? And do Do you think it's, because you could do the WordPress one, but then you kind of tie it to WordPress. But if you have just a blanket, like what TechLords has, he hosts it, so it could be anything. It could be the WordPress, it could be straight HTML, it could be your own thing. You can modify it later, but which was kind of more convenient for me. Like if I'm just going to be doing it myself, then I don't want to spend, I don't want to be a webmaster, because then that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to be able to edit. I'm not going to be able to do my poetry. I'm not going to be able to do that. Like I'm going to be the webmaster, and I'm going to have to like learn all the time and stay up to date and this and that. You know what I mean? Like that potentially, especially if what I envision of it being fully functional, then that's all I'll be tied to, which I don't want, to be honest. I don't mind doing a lot of the front end stuff. I have tons of videos. I can make clips. Give me a couple of hours. I can make intros with already audio and visuals that we have. I could make, Infinite Imaginarium, creating the new story for humanity, open source, collaborative, blah, 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 already what we do. I could have that. I made a Dropbox, which is on the Asana, of images, of icons, of everything I've been playing off of what Nikki also gives me. So we have that ready to go. But like I said, as far as the back end stuff, I don't necessarily want to be tied down to that, because I don't want to necessarily that's all I do. So that's why you do a quick version of it is WordPress. But later, like I said, where we go, we're going to outgrow WordPress. And we should. But now, is Minds ready for us to have the fully collaborative functioning tool? Or are we still going to have to patch it together with different stuff, which is fine. But hopefully in the near future, like say a year or after we do the documentary, we have something that's fully functioning for other artists to come in and collaborate, where people are pitching projects and this and that.
Okay, I appreciate the vision for sure. My focus at this point is let's get up and running what allows our little video clips that we need to generate to be able to be played on something relatively simple and appealing, and what the Sand documentary is going to be about, as our first project, and a place with the final decisions that we come to in the next couple of weeks about who or what entities we're going to use to do crowdfunding. I think it seems to me there's a little more involved with Loomio and CoBudget, apart from other. There's a myriad of crowdfunding platforms. So I think the meetings that Nikki will have with Tim, and going on this radio show and reaching out to others, I think that we need to build upon the Loomio experience and build that into a secondary build. So we'll have a primary build, Daniel, if you don't mind being the spearhead on just the one that establishes us to say, go to infiniteimaginarium.com if you're interested in helping us get this first project underway. Then they can see it, they can introduce to us personally with video, know what we look like, what we're like, what we say, what we sound like, what we think. And that opens the door to have a personal experience with someone who's going to make it possible for us to move forward. Secondarily, I think we'll take all of these beautiful visionary things about combining open sourceness, joining the CoBudget collaborative towards our larger scope of what our nonprofit is going to become. And therefore, we will be able to carry forward with fundraising in such a way where we can have higher impact events locally within each of our spaces. But what we need to do now is we need to get organized on part A, completely submitted and done. And then the nice thing is, as we file the corporation, we can change the vision. We can open up, we can add staff, we can grow. But the three of us have to identify our responsibilities, which is the CEO, the secretary who keeps the notes about all of our meetings, and the treasury. And so the three of us need to come to terms with who is what, who's most capable in each aspect, because I don't know which of you is a better recorder and which of you is a better, sort of accounting of those types of things. That's something we still have to sort out. But I just want to maximize I'm not going to say generic, but I'm going to say a sort of a singularly focused vision to get launched and be completely legal. It's going to take us 3 to 6 months to get nonprofit status from the Internal Revenue Service anyway. There's a whole application process. There's a whole series of things that I'll have to go through and deal with that are disclosures, and I'll have to probably have to hire some legal representation locally, and perhaps deal with getting some things sorted out. And then I've also got that because Nikki's a citizen of the United Kingdom, we have to have a special arrangement to actually transfer funds to her. Of course, we can write Nikki a check or give her cash and just do a statement of account. But Nikki's, with the things that are going on, just so you guys understand, the outflow costs, as far as I'm concerned, I'm trying to leave yours as close to zero as possible, Daniel. Nikki has more because she has to fly from London, and she's got to get the laptop up and running. And then I'm going to have to do all of the procurement and legalization processes, which are going to cost many thousands of dollars. But I want to get you guys taken care of because I'm already incorporated here. So my corporation is investing in this project, but not investing in it as an essential rate of return, but only because I'm incorporated, I can only legally invest in it by using this as a vessel of expansion within my model. So I don't intend to draw any additional pay or whatever, but at some point when we establish the nonprofit, as the board of directors, we're going to need to come to terms with general accounting, where the co-budget will be extremely beneficial in deciding what our project priorities are going to be and how much time we have to allocate resources, not only monetary, but human resources. And Daniel, I had a long talk with Nikki about her availability, what her day-to-day life is like, but I've never really nailed down what yours is like as far as earning money, time you can devote to building a company and things like that. So maybe you could take a few minutes and tell me how you see that going for you ongoing.
Well, yeah, I think out of everybody, I am probably the most free of that. And like, for instance, myself, I'm basically not tied to anything. Like I don't have kids. I don't have even a girlfriend. I cater and work with a couple of friends on weekends or on different projects to get money, just so to meet my basic needs. My basic needs are very minimal. I don't even pay rent because I'm here at my parents' house. So I can devote pretty much, be a full-time employee until this thing gets up and going. So my availability is very flexible. I could work myself to be able to put in 9 to 5 hours every day if need, to get this thing running to where it needs to be because of how I have structured my own life. So like, I already do get my basic needs met by doing side work with friends when they do pop-ups, with my own catering, doing different hustle things that I do.
Okay, so do you feel like do we all feel like we could cumulatively agree that in every week we could give 10 to 20 hours to this project safely?
Yeah, definitely. I
Okay.
can.
So I think that's an important commitment that we need to hear from each other. And I know, Dan, you could do more, but if you are doing more, like the bottom line is this is a two-pronged approach to solving financial future is we're building a personality in each of us that basically becomes marketable in each separate person's own way. Nikki has an active practice with NLP and Reiki healing. Daniel, you have amazing skills in production, post-production, and editing. And I basically am just committed to healing the human race at any cost before the planet dies.
You're the dad. You're the daddy.
Yeah,
We need you, Kevin.
my work covers, like, my companies cover my costs and my financial goals. So I'm willing to shift how much time I invest in what I do to earn a living to do what I need to do to sleep at night. So between you, Dan and Nikki, we should really discuss, like, I feel like I should run it for now just because of my experience and the ability to sort of correlate things. But I don't believe that that has to be the case ongoing. And every year, we need to sort of redecide. So once we file the corporation, we install the articles of incorporation, which basically say who each of us are, what each of us are going to do, and how much value we hold in the process. And I never want anything more than equal value for all of us in this. And I never intend to earn money from this, but I do intend to find new ways for people to know me and the way I think about life in the world. And there are costs involved with that too. So that's just sort of part of the process. But it's a little bit different for you two because you both need this. If you're going to invest, 10 to 20 plus hours into it per week, it ultimately needs to turn into a cash flow. And that's just fundamental, and it should. Okay. I've worked with a lot of people that undervalued their presence in my life, and I spend a lot of time convincing them what what effort is worth, especially in altruistic sense. So I don't think in this first year, if we got through the whole filming process and we had the stock prepared going out of October, and we go, Dan, here's 20 terabytes or 12 terabytes of stuff. Have fun. We need to be prepared for you to have the equipment you need. And but in that 6 months, we'll have come up with the vision. And then we need to really just talk about the second project once we get this up and running. But right now, you guys need to decide who's the secretary, who's the treasurer. We need to come and have a final meeting about who we're going to use for crowdsourcing after you, Nikki, have the talks with Tim and do the other radio program, and Daniel, you, Nikki, and Dan, you should both talk because Daniel's local in LA, where I think we're probably going to pull, in all honesty, probably at least 25 to 35% of the funding will probably fall right in that Pacific coastal region. I notice a lot of the mines, I interact hard on mines specifically for the purpose of finding out where people are, what they do. And there's been a whole new list of people coming in that are posting on our channels and spreading the word about our vision that are pretty well off and pretty professional people. And they're all from San Diego up to Seattle. So between whatever organic reach you have in London, Nikki, and the organic reach that we can generate with you, Daniel, we just need you to bite down on getting our introductory interface up and running. Not the big worldview Imaginarium thing that your passions are going to help us all understand better, working within these cross platforms and how to use the smart contracts to grow other people's capacity to share their version of the message, because we know ultimately each person's story is the story that is the Imaginarium, and that's, you know, that personal effect will be critical. So if that's okay with you guys, that's sort of all I have to say about what I see needing to happen. And I've got a calendar right here with me all the time about things about what the next 30 days needs to do that. So whatever you think about the hosting, Daniel, for
I think so. I already, like I said, the minute I get Sofuego's attention, then I'm gonna capitalize on that to get the WordPress. But if Nikki, maybe if in this week you could talk to Techlords, or maybe me, at very least me and you get on there, because I would love for it if he's willing for him to host it, because I think that would be best, so we're not necessarily tied like with a year contract with WordPress.
Absolutely. And like I sent money to him for the radio channel we had. So if I need to send him money, I'm like, if I want to give money to anybody, I want to give it to our friends.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I think Techlords would be great if we could get him on board. He would help with so many elements.
Yeah, I know from my past experience, like Techlords, he was willing to host it. For him, it's not a big deal because he has the capacity to do that. You know, this. But what he wasn't willing to do is spend the time to build the website, and that's where Sofuego comes in. We use a quick framework for our placeholder of the Infinite Imaginarium. So where we have the videos playing, we have our updates, our blog, or whatever, you know, standard like website for anything. That's where Sofuego comes in. So, you know, because this is, in my mind, it's temporary. So I think we use the resources that we kind of have. Sofuego already committed to me verbally that we could use his pro account, and it's just a matter of me getting him, you know, within 30 minutes of whenever he's free, looking through the thing and saying, "Oh, I like this one. Let's set that up." Then it's a matter of seeing if we could use Techlords hosting, and like we said, we could. Like I said, I'm with you too. Is like I rather, you know, kind of, if we're gonna pay anybody, let's pay people. Like part of what I think what we should always do with our stuff is we have actual connections with whoever we're using, like I would like, I eventually I would like to use Lumio, but I will also like to have discussions with the person, like the whole reason I really like Minds is not because of the functionality, is because I know Bill, I know John, and that's why, because I see that me investing my time and my energy into Minds has this real sustainable value, and it's not, and that's the whole reason. I mean, I'll use Facebook and I'll use YouTube, but it's not the same. And I think, the more, that's the news story, the news story is that. And the more and more we can live in that news story, that's ultimately where
I'm trying to engage only Minds users on this project. I've reached out to many of the artists that make music, and I want to have a backtrack going when we're in the car. I want to have a backtrack of just Minds users' music just going, and get them in the film credits. And then Stephen Morris said he would compose an original piece for us to use either in the intro or outro or wherever. I would like to have it running. I'd like to get that in the budget and get that up and running on as the background for like the website, right? So when you log in there, those things are happening, because I think that those inclusive interactive things are going to be key to our long-term what we're trying to empower people on every level. So the Imaginarium to me is not just what we can do to help you find yourself, quell your ego, go through the whole process of understanding what you are as biology, what you are as spirit, as ether, all these things. Like this is a many-headed hydra. But for me, empowerment starts with, a sense of self, and then secondarily grows into interfacing the world from the new you, which means you have to have some sort of a business model or something. So that's why your discussion earlier about Lumio and all of that part of the platform is so critical to the growth of the business model itself. So
and real quick too, to mention it, that Misty Nomer and her boyfriend, the boyfriend does a lot of, he's a musician, but also does a lot of audio work.
Yep.
And Misty was telling me that she knows of a guy that has a small production company here in the LA area. And he moved away from the industry because he was tired of doing like commercial stuff, and he wanted to do stuff that matters.
Yeah.
And so
I heard it on the Imaginarium show you did with her, and that sounded like a really great resource to get your clip produced.
And then just in that talk, because I already was pitching different things in my head, but I was like, okay, this is perfect, because, and it, in a weird way, half of my idea went away when we can't film in the actual conference, but the other half of the vision is still there to flesh out. But like, for instance, how you're saying we're using the musicians, but I actually, because me and her, we talk kind of often, and she was saying about how he used to go and like, on weekends and perform at like bars or whatever, and then have like these nice like get-togethers with our art community. He's a really good musician, and he plays the piano, and she was giving me music. I said, oh, this is kind of similar, and I wish you were there at those nights, and this and that. I was like, okay. So, and I already told her this, that I want to work with him prior to the thing. We have this basic, kind of like mood music, like something to convey this part, so that we set up the environment. When you do psychedelics, it's about set and setting. So the setting the mood with already kind of priming us for our discussion, priming us for the creativity to come out, and he will be a great resource to like play the emotional cue, triggering of us so that we could have our discussions. So, and we already have a loose base verbal contract that they're willing and able to be involved in our project. Yeah.
So we need to figure out what that entails too, as far as budgetary concerns. So I don't know how much you talked to Missy and her boyfriend, but ask them what they need.
Yeah.
As far as their needs, because I've already expressed to everyone that this is a shoestring project, that we're not any of us are getting paid for our time. We're just trying to cover the cost of, whatever, right? It costs money to not work. That's all there is to it. It costs money to stay away from home. So, all we can do is know a real number. That's where my job, for me to close out, I got to know these real numbers. And after my meeting tonight with this this television producer woman, I'll know a bit more, but I'm bringing her on and consulting I'm doing a work trade with her to do some consulting and understand more what we need to do, not to do like a totally pro show here where we wind up with like 8 people, we're there getting makeup and multiple camera op. I'm not looking for that at all. I'm looking for sort of a run and gun, where one person can sort of turn the filming on and off and make sure that the audio is right and that we're recording the right thing, but we're not trying to jump up and set the camera and do all that stuff at the same time, right? So I want to keep the budget as low as possible so that the crowdfund can be a success. That's the main thing, is I'm trying to build this as a successful end-to-end piece of work, because if we can do that once, we can find out where the caveats fell, and then we can move forward with strength and conviction in the fact that we did it. We got it all together. We did the whole thing. Sometime early 2018, we should have something that we can and give away to the rest of the world, and hopefully it'll be a massive boost for Minds. Like, I think Minds is going to kick hard. Merchandise and other platform initiatives that are really going to give us a lot of organic, global organic reach, because the people who subscribe to us and our channels, they love the mindset. Like this new person, Tammy, and a couple, Bruce, Asher57 or whatever, like they're networking us hard, and they're bringing content, and like these are the generation of people, Zeitgeist Illumination, and these are the people that are all on the same page, all with the same but tangents of the message, and sharing tree, and like those things are going to go a long way, going from one production and then hopefully sliding right into the Boom Festival in Portugal, where we start to explain to the world how sound in the Imaginarium, like and psychedelics, and releasing our primordial self to that, and have that whole experience. But it'll all be based on pulling off the first one and knowing that we were comfortable with how the process went, and because if we all travel half the world away, it'll be closer for Nikki the next time, then it'll be even a more intense experience, and we'll need to be even more prepared, and that type of thing. So anyway, that was all I needed to hear. Does anybody else have anything to say?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm cool. I'm totally cool with all that. That sounds perfect. And just going back to what you were saying, we just need to get these, roles kind of decided, just purely on the paperwork side, in a sense, and it just creates that nice solid base structure, that the business model, obviously, that we need.
Okay. Can Can I hand that off to you, Nikki, and you and Daniel can decide how you feel about that?
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I think Nikki secretary, and I guess I'll be treasury.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay.
I'm totally happy to do that.
Well, you guys sort of look at what that role means, okay? It's real simple just to Google,
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of getting my living room, my living space. All last week, I've just been I've got this massive filing cabinet. Well, I've got a massive wooden unit, sort of filing cabinet, but it had CDs and various things in it, and I've been clearing it all out, and I've been getting all, it's a bit of an old-fashioned filing system I've got going on, because you know what it's like with me and the technology. I don't have all these really high-tech things yet, although that's going to change. Obviously, I'll have my laptop, which would be great, but I'm just getting everything in order, because I tend to write things down on pads, and I sort of scribble things because that's the way my brain works. I know where everything is, but what I'm saying is I'm getting everything organized in a kind of a filing system already. So it kind of seems logical that I become the secretary because I've kind of been doing that anyway, getting everything in an order. So
well, the nice thing is when you get the laptop, you'll be able to use the laptop right away when it comes to start being that new person. And you'll have all your information. You can just open a OneNote file or whatever. There's a million options. Google has a complete set of in the Google platform, but I've switched from Microsoft to Google Docs because it's all free and it's got everything. It's got all kinds of flow charts and Excel charts and things that are real easy to cross-platform into other things. So that'll help you a lot. So we should discuss does anybody, Nikki, you said you had an idea for the next Imaginarium, and can we hold it this weekend?
Yeah, what I'll do is, actually, I could probably, if you want, I usually just do it in the form of a blog or something, and I just post it. I can do it tonight.
Great.
And it's, funnily enough, talking of synchronicity, that post about the water, which I haven't read, but we obviously started a thread talking about the meeting and everything. I haven't watched that actual video, but it's to do with structured water, the foods and the things to do with how they affect our functioning and how they affect us on a spiritual level as well, in terms of how much we evolve and all that type of thing. So that whole thing with water and how water's got a memory, it coincides with the fact that we all have, we're like a biocomputer. So we have like our DNA, and we can basically have a program running in our subconscious, which then plays out as what we see as our reality. And it's the same with water. Water has a memory, and that's one of the great things about structured water. I don't know if you've heard about structured water, because in a sense, what you're doing by restructuring the water is you're wiping all the previous memory. So you're kind of resetting it as a blank slate, and then it kind of retains its purity, and it's better for you. But it's also, so it's all that stuff. So it's all about the foods and the supplements and the things that affect our body in that sense, but also it's about the subconscious and how we can actually go in and reset the subconscious.
Beautiful.
It sounds a bit Flash Gordon, like there's a term, subliminal flush, which almost, it makes me think of that film Flash Gordon when he has that mind wipe. Yeah. In a sense, it's similar to that, but in the positive sense, if you can reset your subconscious, you can then add programs into your subconscious, like in the film The Matrix, when I think she gets into a helicopter and he installs a program so she knows instantly how to fly a helicopter, whereas she didn't have the ability to do it before.
Yep.
So in that sense, if you know how to reset your subconscious, you can then add a program into your subconscious of something that you want to do. And this is where people can become genius, and they can learn things very rapidly and very quickly. And they can, and it's the true, it kind of falls into the whole law of attraction thing as well, where you can this whole thing about manifestation and creating our own reality, it all boils down to what's in the subconscious, because the subconscious is kind of the garden of the creation process. It cultivates the things that then become your reality. So people sometimes are very positive and move forward in certain areas of their life, but other areas they say, oh, for some reason I just keep getting a block, I can't seem to get past this certain thing, or my life starts getting good and then I I get that whole sabotage thing where I somehow sabotage it. And what that boils down to is there's a program running in your subconscious that is preventing you from moving beyond